Welcome to the lesson on the first phase of the Six Sigma DMAIC model, the define phase. Upon completion of this lesson, learners will be able to explain the define phase of the Six Sigma DMAIC model and recognize the tools associated with the define phase. DMAIC model is one of the most commonly used Six Sigma techniques. DMAIC is a Six Sigma method that stands for the 5 process improvement phases it uses: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Each of these 5 phases, or steps, includes the use of many tools. Much like the scientific method, each step relies on the previous steps before it, making sequence and documentation at each phase critical. DMAIC methodology aims to continually improve the process through repeat testing, learning, and improving. The methods used by the DMAIC model can be applied to improve existing processes and applied to the design or redesign of a new process. First, let's cover the basics. Experiments, graphs, and statistics used in DMAIC usually compare an independent and a dependent variable. A factor, or independent variable, is the variable being changed in the experiment, which is usually found on the x-axis of the graphs. Factors are potential causes of variation. A response, or dependent variable, is the variable being observed, typically plotted on the y-axis. Responses are the effects to the changes of the independent variable. A large part of DMAIC involves the relationship between factors and responses. The first and perhaps most important phase of the DMAIC model is the define phase. The define phase is when the existing process is understood and clarified among all team members, and a project scope and goals are set. Defining the project includes creating a project contract, identifying customer requirements, and developing an understanding of the process. Defining the task at hand is very important because before a process can be improved, it must first be understood. A project contract, or project charter, is a written document that states the purpose and objective of the project. The project contract acts as a baseline for the rest of the project. There are several tools to aid in the define phase of the DMAIC approach. These tools include process maps, flowcharts, and critical to quality, or CTQ trees. Let us take a deeper look at the 3 main tools used in the define phase. A process map or process diagram is a tool that gives a visual representation of the relationships within a process. Input, process, output, and SYN-EV-QEM-MT-8.4-Six diagrams are both process diagrams used to help the team understand the process. An input, process, output diagram, also called an IPO diagram used in conjunction with process maps, illustrates the relationship of the process input factors, and the outputted product. IPO diagrams are useful because they are simple yet effective in identifying how factors in a process and inputs can affect the yield or the output. The diagram on this slide demonstrates what an IPO diagram might look like. A SYN-EV-QEM-MT-8.4-Six diagram takes the IPO diagram a step further. It maps the relationship between the supplier, input, process, output, and customers. A SYN-EV-QEM-MT-8.4-Six diagram is slightly more complex than the basic IPO diagram because it considers the role of the supply chain in the processes in addition to the input and output elements. A flowchart or a flow diagram is a tool that helps define a process by illustrating the relationship and sequence between the steps of the process. Flowcharts use different shaped symbols to show the logical flow and the type of steps that are present in a process. Flowcharts are useful because they clearly define the major steps of the process and show the sequence of events. The final tool used in the define step are called critical to quality trees, or CTQs. CTQs are the specifications that a product must meet to be considered a quality product. CTQs are usually a direct reflection of the voice of the customer and their needs. A critical to quality tree is a tool used to identify the requirements that a product must have in order to satisfy the customer. A CTQ tree is an effective way for the team to identify the customer, identify their needs, and ensure that the project is considering the voice of the customer. To construct a CTQ tree, identify the customer needs, the drivers that must be in effect to meet these needs, and the requirements necessary to meet each driver. An example of a CTQ template is shown here. CTQ trees can be used in all stages of the DMAIC project, but are necessary at the define phase. The key deliverables of the defined phase are a project contract, process diagrams for the processes of interest, and a definition of all critical to quality characteristics. Furthermore, each member of the team must establish a thorough understanding of the problems and the process at hand. For the defined step to be successful, all members of the project team must understand the full scope of the problem, from the details of the process to the big picture project goals. In summary, the DMAIC model is the most common Six Sigma technique utilized in industry for continuous improvement projects. The defined phase of the DMAIC model requires the understanding of the current process and sets the project scope and goals for the process. Tools in the defined phase include process maps, input-process-output diagrams, flowcharts, and critical to quality trees. Thank you.